This book is to be neither an accusation nor a confession, and least of all an adventure, for death is not an adventure to those who stand face to face with it. It will try simply to tell of a generation of men who, even though they may have escaped shells, were destroyed by the war. I am young. I am 20 years old, yet I know nothing of life but despair, death, fear, and fatuous superficiality cast over an abyss of sorrow. I see how people are set against one another, and in silence, unknowingly, foolishly, obediently, and innocently slay one another. We were 18 and had begun to love life and the world, and we had to shoot it to pieces. We don't act like that because we are in good humor. We are in a good humor because otherwise we should go to pieces. State and home country, there's a big difference. But they go together, insists Crop. Without the state, there wouldn't be any home country. If you train a dog so that it only eats potatoes, and then after a while you offer it a chunk of meat, it'll still grab it because it's in its nature. And if you offer a man a bit of power, the same thing happens. He'll grab it. It's instinctive because when it comes down to it, a man is basically a beast, and it's only later that a bit of decency gets smeared on top, the way you can spread dripping on your bread. It is too dangerous for me to put these things into words. I am afraid they might then become gigantic, and I be no longer able to master them. We loved our country as much as they did. We went courageously into every action, but we also distinguished the false from the true, which we had suddenly learned to see. The wisest were just the poor and simple people. They knew the war to be a misfortune, whereas those who were better off and should have been able to see more clearly what the consequences would be were beside themselves with joy. We have so much to say, and we shall never say it. These memories of former times do not awaken desire so much as sorrow, a vast, inapprehensible melancholy. Once we had such desires, but they return not. They are past. They belong to another world that is gone from us. We're no longer young men. We've lost any desire to conquer the world. We are refugees. We are fleeing from ourselves, from our lives. We are no longer untroubled. We are indifferent. And men will not understand us. For the generation that grew up before us, though it has passed these years with us, already had a home and a calling. Now it will return to its old occupations, and the war will be forgotten, and the generation that has grown up after us will be strange to us and push us aside. We will be superfluous even to ourselves. Mother, mother, you still think I am a child. Why can I not put my head in your lap and weep? Why have I always had to be strong and self-controlled? I would like to weep and be comforted too. Indeed, I am little more than a child. In the wardrobe still hang short boys' trousers. It is such a little time ago. Why is it over? A hospital alone shows what war is. Let the months and years come. They can take nothing from me. They can take nothing more. I am so alone and so without hope that I can confront them without fear. War is destruction, and destruction is war. War is a failure of man, and yet it is everything that defines him. We came to realize, first with astonishment, then bitterness, and finally with indifference, that intellect apparently wasn't the most important thing. Not ideas, but the system. Not freedom, but drill. A word of command has made these silent figures our enemies. A word of command might transform them into our friends. What is leave? A pause that only makes everything after it so much worse. Iron youth. Youth. We are none of us more than 20 years old. But young. Youth. That is long ago. We are old folk. Why do they never tell us that you are poor devils like us, that your mothers are just as anxious as ours, and that we have the same fear of death, and the same dying and the same agony? Our knowledge of life is limited to death. One thing has become clear to me. You can cope with all the horror as long as you simply duck thinking about it, but it will kill you if you try to come to terms with it. It is very queer that the unhappiness of the world is so often brought on by small men. They are so much more energetic and compromising than the big fellows. All declarations of war ought to be made into a kind of festival, with entrance tickets and music, like they have at bullfights. Then the ministers and generals of the two countries would have to come into the ring, wearing boxer shorts and armed with rubber truncheons, and have a go at each other. Whoever is left on his feet, his country is declared the winner. That would be simpler and fairer than things are out here, where the wrong people are fighting each other. We have lost all sense of other considerations because they are artificial. Only the facts are real and important to us. I stand there and wonder whether, when I am 20, I shall have experienced the bewildering emotions of love.